Crippling conditions across the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast today.
This was not a typical snowstorm.
The sky was just like a monster on top of you. White canopy raining down on you nonstop.
And if you're expecting a delivery from a truck and it came from the Northeast, you may not be getting it on time.
She says, we have a kidney for you.
You have something in your hands that somebody's dependent on.
The roads were just terrible. There was cars all over the place.
I was told to deliver it soon as possible. Save the life of this person.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, if anything goes wrong, I'm gonna die.
From the Weather Channel, this is Storm Stories with meteorologist Jim Cantore.
February 2003, President's Day weekend, Winfield, New Jersey. Judy and Bob Huser have just arrived home from a rare weekend away. Bob's been struggling with a series of medical problems. First diabetes, then kidney failure.
Living on dialysis is not the most fun part of life, and I don't wish it on anybody. It makes you so weak that sometimes you don't even know where you are.
The Husers are barely in the door when they get a call from St. Barnabas Medical Center.
It was my transplant coordinator asking me where I was, and she says, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No." "Well, you better sit down." I says, "Why?" She says, "We have a kidney for you." I almost fell on the floor.
Ideally, a kidney is transplanted within 24 hours of the donor's death, so surgery is scheduled for the very next day. But there's a hitch. The kidney is in Philadelphia, 100 miles away, and a major storm system is dumping snow across the Northeast.
A couple of areas of low pressure coming together, kind of combining forces, if you will, to be a major moisture magnet.
As far as the New York airports, a lot of cancellations. Those airports will be seriously impacted as the snow picks up.
Both the organ and Bob need to get to the hospital, and every minute that passes is critical.
The storm kept getting worse, and we decided, well, maybe we shouldn't sit around and wait.
We had a kidney, and we were going to St. Barnabas. And that was it. I just grabbed my pocketbook, and off we went.
They head off into the storm, knowing that the organ that could save Bob's life is finally on its way. 8:30 p.m. Dispatchers at Sterling Courier in Herndon, Virginia, have one eye on the phones and another on the weather. The international company specializes in on-time delivery of critical packages. Tonight's snowstorm is making Sterling's mission nearly impossible.
We are in alert mode tonight as a historic storm is pounding the East Coast with heavy snow. That's causing some big-time travel problems.
It was snowing hard, it was snowing fast.
Tracy Horvath and her husband Chris are both dispatching for Sterling. Because of the weather, they're working from home tonight. The storm has most of the East Coast at a standstill until 8:53, when Tracy gets a medical call from headquarters.
Medical sets off that this job is a priority. This means that life or death, possibly. There are calls where they take precedent over anything else.
This medical call concerns an organ transplant, the kidney intended for Bob Huser. It's Tracy's job to find a courier who's willing to drive it 100 miles through the raging snow.
I went through a lot of drivers trying to call them and begging them to do it, being that it was a medical for transplant.
9 p.m. Zack Fonseca is one of those drivers. When he hears about the life-saving nature of the delivery, he takes the job.
This could have been someone's family member. This could have been my family member. You don't know what's on the other side. You don't know whose loved one that is.
Zack does know he'll need to make 2 stops. First at a medical lab in Springfield, New Jersey, where the kidney will be tested to confirm it's a perfect match. Then at the hospital 6 miles north in Livingston. The 31-year-old courier heads directly to the suburban Philadelphia office to pick up the kidney. While there, he looks at the forecast.
I got on the Weather Channel, and the snow was moving to the northeast, and the heavier bands were still behind us. So I'm thinking, all right, well, if I can maintain about 30 to 40 miles an hour, I can probably stay ahead of the brunt of it.
Zack checks his tire chains, packs a shovel and some sand in his SUV, and heads back out into the storm. But he has underestimated the weather. Up to 12 inches of snow already have fallen across northwestern Philadelphia, and the forecast calls for 12 more by midnight. What normally would be a 2-hour drive could take all night.
I thought to myself, do I really want to do this? It wasn't Oregon. Destination was Livingston. I had no idea where Livingston was.
Zack calls Tracy's husband, dispatcher Chris Horvath, and asks about the best route to take.
The roads were bad already. The New Jersey Turnpike was probably one of the only roads that was open. There was no alternative.
The storm was just all over the radio. They've been talking about it for days.
We are going to see blizzard-like conditions as we go on through the night tonight.
Everyone knew it was coming. It was going to be bad, in the 30 to 40 inch range.
10:15 p.m. As Zack reaches the New Jersey Turnpike, he reconsiders his decision to take the job.
Visibility was about 15 to 20 feet in front of me. Snow was already piling up fast, real fast.
Snow pelts the windshield, slashing through the glow of the headlights. Zack leans forward, straining to see any sign of life on the empty road.
I've been up and down New Jersey Turnpike dozens of times or more, and nothing looked familiar. The exit signs were so far in between, I forgot where I was half the time.
Up in New Jersey, Judy and Bob Huser are fighting the roads as well. They have been driving for nearly 2 hours and still have not reached the hospital. Just before they get to St. Barnabas, they hit a mile-long mountainous incline known as the Route 280 hill.
Well, I don't like the hill to start out with.
On a dry day, on a good day, it's a bad hill.
Bob and Judy have two options: drive up or turn back.
The road was just one solid sheet of ice.
And you would see cars trying to get up the hill and you couldn't.
Judy pauses for a second and then gives the engine some gas.
I just kept going. I didn't want to stop because I was afraid I would never get going again.
It was like a skating pond. You go up and you could feel yourself sliding back, and you try to go farther and you could still feel yourself sliding back.
There was one time we were just going sideways. And I figured, well, if I have to go zigzag up the hill, well, then that's what I have to do to get up there.
To be honest with you, I don't know how she got up there. There were times when my heart was in my throat, so to speak, because I sure the hell thought we were never going to make it. I got to give her a lot of credit for it, because I probably would have turned around and went back home.
10:30 p.m. The Husers are safe at the hospital, but Bob's new kidney is still nearly 100 miles away. For courier Zack Fonseca, the thrill of this rush delivery is becoming the struggle of his life. Zack's having trouble navigating the 15-inch deep snow. Then he makes out the lights of a salt truck up ahead.
The salt trucks were doing a decent job of keeping the road somewhat clear.
Zack pulls into the lane behind the truck and spends the next 30 miles in its wake. Just when he thinks he's going to make it, the tire chain on his rear wheel snaps.
I skid off a little bit, pulled to the shoulder. The damaged chain was only one half it broke, so I had to undo it. In the snow, my gloves were soaked. I had 3 layers of clothes on, but it wasn't enough.
It takes Zack no more than 10 minutes to get back behind the wheel. But 15 miles down the road, a second chain snaps. The car fishtails across the expressway and stops at the guardrail. Fixing the second chain proves more difficult than fixing the first. Zack pries it loose and tosses the remnants into the back of his SUV. It isn't until 11:30 p.m. that he gets back on the road. And now, conditions are even worse.
I was back in the deep snow. Couldn't see the side of the road. Couldn't see anything except an occasional street light and overpass. No cars, no state troopers, nothing. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if anything goes wrong, I'm gonna die. And I'm getting scared.
Zack calls dispatcher Chris Horvath every 25 minutes to update him on his progress.
In this business, it's all communication. He was in constant communication to keep in touch with what conditions were.
I told him, okay, I'm behind mile marker 257 and 258. You know, this way you can call in, this is where you find me. Or this is where to send an ambulance or something.
3 a.m. The storm continues to intensify. A state of emergency has been called for most of the region. And for Zack, that's not the worst of it.
I noticed my windshield wipers are getting really, really slow. And I'm looking at my alternator gauge, and my voltmeter's dropping.
He tries to stay focused on the road, but he can't keep his eyes off the voltmeter's needle. Again, he calls Chris Horvath.
The first thing that goes through your mind is contingencies.
Chris was concerned about my safety.
I kept asking him, are you sure you're going to be able to make it?
Zack doesn't know if he'll make it. He's in the middle of a snowstorm with no one else around, and his car is dying.
I could hear the alternator squealing. I'm like, I'm going to be stuck on the side of the road. I'm going to end up freezing to death because I couldn't keep the motor running if the alternator's going. And if I end up dead, somebody else is going to end up dead because I have their kidney with me.
President's Day 2003, 3:05 a.m. Medical courier Zack Fonseca is doing whatever it takes to keep his car running as he drives through a major nor'easter with a dying battery. To conserve energy, he shuts off the radio, the heat, and the windshield wipers.
I rolled down the window, and I found myself looking out the window. My head was hanging out the window. I'm pelted with snow, and I'm trying to navigate where I am at this point.
Zack doesn't realize it, but he's only about 6 miles south of the medical lab that will run tests on his vital cargo, a human kidney for transplant. 6 miles north of the lab, Bob and Judy Huser are safe inside St. Barnabas Medical Center, waiting for the organ that Bob is slated to receive.
I was watching the clock more than anything, knowing there's so many hours that they had to put the kidney in.
The clock is ticking, but unlike Judy, Bob isn't concerned.
I wasn't worrying about what was going to happen. Whatever happened, happened. I felt I was in good hands.
Zack Fonseca is not as confident. By 3:30 a.m., the headlights of his SUV are flickering.
The first thing that flashed through my mind is, I've got to complete this job. I felt this weird sense of duty and obligation to just get there, no matter what. So I was white-knuckled on the steering wheel, and I just kept going. I was scared to take my foot off the gas.
Through the swirling snow, Zack sees a light by the side of the road. His car has just enough juice to get to it. He coasts to a stop at the front door of a bagel shop. As he does so, his alternator belt flies off.
And I was thinking to myself, of all the worst timing, and I was so close to getting the organ where it needed to be. And I was just mad at myself.
Zack goes inside the shop and asks the owner for help.
I told him, this is where I'm going, here's who I am. I have a human organ on board, and I gotta get to this destination. I don't have any time.
But no one in the shop wants to brave the storm, and all local auto parts stores are closed.
A few minutes later, I saw a police cruiser pass by. So I'm outside, jumping up and down, trying to get these guys' attention. They see me, they pull over, and they ask what's wrong. I was like, look, I'm a medical courier, I have a human organ on board. I've got to go to this place, do a tissue match, and then go to the hospital.
Zack persuades the police to drive him to the lab. Meanwhile, Chris Horvath arranges for a second car to take the kidney the rest of the way.
We were trying to find out exactly what our options were, and Sterling was working on finding an alternate courier in the area.
At 6:40 a.m., dispatcher Mary Price calls courier Mohammed Dalla, who's 20 miles away in Wallington, New Jersey.
I said, Mohammed, get up. And he said, what can I do for you, ma'am? I told him that I needed him to go to Springfield and pick up a kidney.
I thought for a minute because the weather was so bad, so I said I'm not gonna do that job. But then they told me it's a medical and it's emergency. So I think I'm doing good thing. That is the good thing, to help other people. So I go do it.
Mohammed kisses his wife and 2 sons goodbye and heads for the car. He's lived in the United States for 2 years now, but he has never seen snow like this before.
I'm from Africa, so I thought, yeah, it's okay. It's gonna take me another extra 15 minutes.
Mohammed is wrong. It takes him 20 minutes to drive only 2 miles. He's still 18 miles from the lab when his car slides toward a ditch and gets stuck.
I didn't have a shovel, so I had that brush to clean the glass, and I was digging with my hands.
Did I worry about him that morning? You bet I did. I knew what I was asking him to do, and I know the urgency of my job.
7 a.m. Zack Fonseca arrives in a police cruiser at the Springfield laboratory, where the kidney must undergo tests before final delivery. The medical staff begins the organ analysis. The initial results are confirmed. This kidney is a perfect match for Bob Huser. Now it's up to the second medical courier, Mohammed Dalla. Dispatchers Chris and Tracy Horvath know that even if Mohammed makes it to the laboratory on time, the kidney still needs to travel to the hospital.
Somebody is dependent on this organ, and then if you don't get it to them, will the opportunity arise for them to have another one? So the pressure was very upsetting.
We lived it, we breathed it, we ate it, we slept it. You know, and when something like this happened, you know, we took it personally.
7:15 a.m. Transplant surgeon Dr. Stephen Guy is at home in Livingston, New Jersey, when he hears the kidney and its driver have made it to the lab safely. It's time for Guy to get to the hospital, but that isn't an easy task. The roads near his house are blocked by snow. Travel by car is impossible, so Guy sets out on a 2-mile walk to St. Barnabas.
The ice and snow driving into my eyes, you know, was blinding. And so to avoid that, I wore actually goggles that I sometimes wear in the operating room.
Guy is pretty sure he'll make it in time for surgery, but he's less confident about Bob's kidney.
This was a good match for Bob for a kidney. You know, we just would hate to see him not get his chance to get the good transplant.
Meanwhile, 5 miles from the lab where the kidney waits, Mohammed Dalla has just freed himself from a snowy ditch. At 8 a.m., he calls to let dispatcher Mary Price know he's almost there.
I was getting frightened, and he would call me on his cell phone, and he would say, "I am okay, ma'am. I am okay. I am another block closer."
And she was telling me, good, 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 good. Just be careful, don't go too fast.
At 8:20 a.m., Mohammed picks up the kidney from the Springfield lab. He has no idea who Bob Huser is or how long it will take to get this kidney to the hospital. But he turns around and gets back in his car.
I was praying, please God, help me to reach there on time and save the life of this person, whoever it is.
Crippling conditions across the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast today. Not a day to get out and travel.
Monday, February 17th, 2003, Springfield, New Jersey. It's been 2.5 hours, and medical courier Mohammed Dalla still has not made it the 6 miles to St. Barnabas Medical Center with a kidney for transplant.
We kept expecting the kidney to arrive at any moment, and you know, there was one delay after another, and there were times when we weren't sure if it was actually going to make it.
There was a lot of emotions that morning. People were scared. We were scared that we could not do it.
Finally, at 10 a.m., Mohammed races into the hospital.
When I reached at the hospital, they were excited. They said, wow, they got happy. Yeah, we got it.
Moments later, at Sterling Courier Dispatch, Mary Price confirms the delivery.
I told the medical desk that was delivered. People just started screaming, "Good job, Mohammed, good job, Mohammed."
The ladies were cheering. They told me, we were not expecting you. How did you manage to come?
4 p.m., 21 hours after finding out that a kidney was available, Bob Huser is prepped for surgery. The 6-hour procedure goes smoothly. And Dr. Guy says Bob's prognosis is excellent.
Assembling everybody, assembling the team, and hearing the story of what the courier went through to get here was quite remarkable. The surgery was the easiest part.
It isn't until the next day that Philadelphia courier Zack Fonseca learns that the kidney arrived and surgery was a success.
I was about to pat myself on the back, but I was very pleased the organ got there and got to its recipient, and it ultimately got to its destination.
Perfectly normal and stable. The idea
Kidney recipient Bob Huser will be eternally grateful.
You should have no problems. You should do fine.
Two strangers risked their lives to save his. It's something he'll never forget.
They say it's my story, and I said, really, it's not. It's the two couriers, especially the one coming from Philadelphia, because he risked his life to get that kidney there. He didn't even know who it was going for. And to come from Philadelphia through that snowstorm and having the troubles that he had with his vehicle, God bless him. That's all I can say.
Transplant surgeries like Bob Huser's occur every day. But how many people die waiting for an organ? Find out when Storm Stories returns. So how many people die waiting for an organ? Bob Huser didn't become one of the statistics. In the United States, 1 in 17 people die every day while waiting for organs. 1 in 10 die waiting for kidneys. And every 13 minutes, a new person is added to the national waiting list. To find out more about organ donation, log on to donatelife.net. For Storm Stories, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori. Your local forecast is next.